Welcome to Every Church a Peace Church, a program that promotes the belief that the church could turn the world towards peace if the church lived and taught as Jesus lived and taught. My name is Don Edwards. I'm the host for this program, and today we have a wonderful, exciting, and informative program. We're going to be talking about Mel Gibson's The Passion of the Christ. I think nowhere in my recent memory has there been a movie that has stirred so much controversy and discussion from so many different viewpoints. And is it accurate? Does it reflect the life and teachings of Jesus? Does it show how Jesus caused so much opposition? Is it anti-Semitic? We have a perfect guest to engage in these discussions, Dr. Rocco A. Errico, a professor, a scholar, a minister, someone who has who speaks and writes in the language of Aramaic. He's president and founder of the Noohra Foundation in Smyrna, Georgia, and has devoted his life and teachings to the life and teachings of Jesus, teachings and actions which engage us in a unconditional love of all humanity, yes, even an unconditional love of enemies. Before we discuss the Passion, I'd like to again welcome Dr. Errico back to Every Church a Peace Church.
Here again.
You are a frequent guest, and you're welcome anytime. We love having you.
Thank you.
And we love your spirit and the information that you give, particularly the unique one from the Aramaic teachings and the Aramaic language and the Near Eastern nuances that infuse the New Testament and the Old Testament. Before we talk about the Passion, what's your views of it? I'd like for the audience to get an understanding of what you do in the Noohra Foundation. What is the Noohra Foundation, and could you describe a little bit about your ministry?
Sure. Well, first of all, the word Noohra, N-O-O-H-R-A, means light in Aramaic. That is an Aramaic word. I used to be called the Aramaic Bible Center. But what has happened is so many people have used that name, Aramaic Bible Center, Aramaic Bible Society, different things, and they kept associating me with those other people, and I wasn't a part of them at all. So I changed it to an Aramaic name, Noohra, which means light, and that's what we do at the foundation. We do research work in scriptures based solely on Aramaic, Near Eastern customs, psychology, philosophy, totally Semitic, and totally Near Eastern. Today we use the term Middle East, but the proper term is really the Near East. And Aramaic was the language that Jesus spoke. It was the language of the Hebrew patriarchs, and it was used even by Paul. So this is why the Aramaic work is so important, because it sheds a great deal of light on Scripture. Many things that Jesus said are misunderstood because people didn't understand when it went from Aramaic to Greek, and then Greek into all the other languages, and then finally into English. We misunderstand some of the things Jesus said. So I put out commentaries based on the Aramaic language, shedding a great deal of light on misunderstood passages of Scripture and things Jesus said. For instance, the book you have in your hand right now, Aramaic Light on the Gospel of Matthew. This is the only commentary available totally and completely based on Aramaic and on the Aramaic New Testament and all the customs and manners. Dr. George M. Lanza and I, before he passed away, we only drafted this, and now I completed it after all these years. And I've gone up to the book of Acts, and I'm working on Paul's epistles now.
All right. Well, this is a very exciting ministry that you have, and it's very novel, because many of us really don't understand the Bible unless we can understand the idioms, the culture, the language that Jesus lived in.
Right.
And it's gone through so many different translations and committee approval, and we'll add this, we'll take this out, that it has left us with confusion,
Right.
and subject to being the terms and the phraseology that and the words that Jesus gave are subject to being misused and misapplied.
Well, exactly. You know, for instance, I'll give an example before we get into the Passion, where Jesus said that no man comes to the Father except through him. He was the way, the truth, and the life, and no man comes to the Father except through him. Mm-hmm. This is an Aramaic way of speaking. They have to understand the relationship between a father and a son in the Near East, because the father tells the son everything, all the secrets and everything. And he's using this as an illustration, saying, you really want to find out the secrets of the Father, come to me. You see, I am the way means my teaching is the way. Mm-hmm. And besides, there's no definite or indefinite article in Aramaic. It just says, I am way, I am truth, I am life. Mm-hmm. That's literally what it says in Aramaic. The definite article is not there. And what he was meaning by that is, because all the other teachers in religion, they were representing their notions, their ideas, whereas he represented God as the beloved, as the Father. Father in Aramaic means beloved. Mm-hmm. So what he was saying, that if you want to come and know the secrets of the Father, come to the Son, I'll tell you everything. And then Philip says to him, well, show us the Father and we'll be satisfied. And he says, have I been with you all this time and you do not recognize me? Which means I've been demonstrating what God is, mm-hmm. that God is all inclusive and not exclusive. Mm-hmm. He heals the sick. He goes to the marginal people. He goes to harlots. He goes to publicans. He goes to sinners. God is open to everyone. That's how he demonstrated the Father. And those were the Father's secrets. Mm-hmm. Because they taught that God was exclusive. God was just contained for them. And you'd have to follow his way. Like most religions teach, unless you come my way, you're out. Yeah. Jesus taught the opposite. That's an example of Aramaic.
Well, that example is particularly one that's applicable, because it's that no one comes but through me has been used to say, well, unless you are a Christian, right, you're doomed.
That's right.
Unless if you're a Muslim, if you're a Hindu, if you're a Buddhist, God has favored only the Christians, and unless you do that, unless you become a Christian, then you're doomed to some
annihilation.
Existence.
Right. You don't have eternal life. Paul says in his letter to the Romans in the 2nd chapter, he says, every man will be judged according to his works, if they are good or bad. He didn't say anything about Jesus there at all. And Paul believed in the gospel of Jesus Christ. And yet in the 2nd chapter of Corinthians, he says, every man is going to be judged according to his works, if he did good deeds or if he did bad deeds. And all religions teach that.
Well, as Jesus, as you've indicated, the misapplication of Jesus' words have been used to justify anti-Semitism. Mm-hmm. What about the Passion of the Christ by Mel Gibson?
Okay.
Let's talk about that a little bit. Is that anti-Semitic? Does that reveal a certain? Is it incomplete as it relates to Jesus' life? Does it just provide too much of a snapshot of his crucifixion and the suffering that it blurs everything else about the life and teachings of Jesus Christ?
Well, first of all, I need to say, to me, the film was over the top and overdone, like a cooked goose that's been burned to death and it's served on the table. That's my opinion of the film. And therefore, everything is overdone. The Jewish Sanhedrin, which were the priests who helped with Jesus in his death, it's exaggerated to such an extent. The Scriptures don't even teach that. The Scriptures teach, because Jesus, you see, we got to remember something. Jesus was not a Christian. He never even died a Christian. He died a Galilean Jew. He was Jewish. All his disciples who followed him, which we call apostles, they were all Galilean Jews. Everyone was Jewish there, you see. So even to say that the Gospels were anti-Semitic is a misunderstanding of the Gospels, because they don't know how to read. When people write in Aramaic, they use sweeping statements. When it says the Jews this and the Jews that in the Gospels, now we're not talking about Mel Gibson, I'm going to get back to him in a minute.
All right.
In the Gospels, when it uses those terminology, it means certain authorities and certain groups that were so steeped in such a strong sense of the Judaism that existed at that time that they bordered on fanaticism. And all religions have that. I don't care what religion, Christian, Jewish, or any kind of religion. There's always those who go to extremes. We call them extremists. And there were some of those. But the reason why the priest, now we're getting back to Mel Gibson's film, but the gospel confirms this too. The reason why the priest decided to bring Jesus to trial, because he was Galilean, a Galilean Jew. And so many of the insurrections and the insurgents that came into the land, into Israel, was from Galilee. So they looked at Jesus as an insurgent, as one who would cause trouble. You see, and the film doesn't bring this out at all. So they decided, a few of the priests and the Sanhedrin, not all of them, whereas in the film it just makes them totally evil, which was a wrong thing to do, but that's what they did. And the Sanhedrin got together, and what they said was this, and it's recorded even in the scriptures this way: it's better for one man to die than all the people to die, because they were afraid Jesus would cause an insurrection, like the insurgents now that they were having in Iraq. So because of that, they figured better to put him to death than have an uprising and a lot of people die and a lot of bloodshed. Yes, not good reasoning, but nonetheless that's how they reasoned. But the way Mel Gibson's film portrays him, like bloodthirsty, hungry, angry priests, you know, I mean, just like, I could hardly wait to kill you. I mean, because it's over the top. Everything was over the top in that film, not just the Jewish priests, but even Judas. And when he was tormented, he even used little children to come, little boys throwing rocks at him. Of course it was symbolic. That never happened at all. Mel Gibson uses it as a symbol. Using children to throw rocks at him? Oh, something's kooky up here to use that, to make children so vicious and mean towards Judas. It was used as a symbol in the film. There's so much with this film that utterly turned me ice cold. I couldn't believe it. And the bloodshed, and even the Roman soldiers, when they were beating Jesus when he was carrying there, they just kept it up and kept it up and kept it up and kept it up and kept it up. It sounds like I'm exaggerating it now, but it's not exaggerated. It's exactly what they did in that film. And it's ridiculous. That never happened in history. It's such a misrepresentation. And even in the Gospels, there is some exaggeration too, but not like Mel Gibson's film. But people are taking advantage of it. Now, as far as hating the Jews are concerned, the film won't make you hate Jews anymore. You know, and we call anti-Semitic. By the way, that term anti-Semitic has become to mean only anti-Jewish.
Yes.
But originally, the way it's used today, it does mean anti-Jewish. But originally, all Semites, Arabs are Semites, Assyrians are Semites, your Syrians are Semites. These are Semites. But we have used the term exclusively when we use the term Semite to mean only Jewish people. But originally, it means all the Semitic groups. Jesus was a Semite. Jesus was of the Jewish faith, even though he was Galilean. All his apostles, even Paul, he was a Pharisee. Paul was a Pharisee. And Jesus' family, his mother and his father, and all of his brothers and relatives all belonged to the Pharisee movement. And there were a lot of Pharisees, even though it talks about the Pharisees did this, the Pharisees did that. It sounds like they hated him. But there were many Pharisees that believed in Jesus. But you see, in Aramaic, they use sweeping statements. They say the Jews did this, the Pharisees did that. It means a group of them. A select group of them did it. But it's a shame because, again, it's coming from another culture, another way of speaking, and another language that makes it difficult to understand. So this film, even though we brought out some of the negatives, there are some positives because it does bring out the Aramaic language.
Yes.
I've been getting lots of phone calls, and even I have my books are available on Amazon.com, by the way. And we've been getting nothing but orders on Amazon for these commentaries based on Aramaic. So the film is opening the way for the Aramaic language. It's time people drop the idea of the Greek and turn to Aramaic for a better understanding of what Jesus said, his life and his death. We don't even understand the meaning of his death. All kinds of things are blamed on his death. Jews are blamed for his death. Our sins, we're also to blame for his death. All this is a misunderstanding of Aramaic terminology.
Well, since the death of, or at least the physical death of Jesus was the centerpiece of this film, explain the meaning of and the reason for the death of Jesus.
Okay, the reason for his death was because of his teachings. His teachings were subversive to regular political powers that only have self-interest in mind, also to religious authorities that only have self-interest in mind, you see. And that's what, when he said, love your enemies, when he went to the harlots, you know, whores, tax collectors, look where he was, look what the people he was among, you know. He is so revolutionary in his teachings. And another thing, too, he didn't believe in using the sword to bring about a change.
Right.
See, whereas most people, like your terrorists in the Muslim religion, that's a branch of them that believe that the force of arms will bring peace on earth, the way to enforce their ideas of the Muslim religion, you see. But Jesus did not teach the only way to bring peace was through love, through understanding, through harmony, through loving your enemy. Didn't go up to your enemy and kiss them, but it means try to find ways to reconcile yourself with them. Argue at the table, you know, the peace table, for years, rather than picking up that sword or that gun or that thing to bring bloodshed.
How many times should you forgive? You know,
70 times 7. And really, you know what that means in Aramaic? That's again an Aramaic expression. Means there's no definite number. Because when Peter said that, should I 7 times 7? And then Jesus says, no, 70 times 7, which was a fantastic number for Peter, because Peter couldn't read or write. He was illiterate. Most of his disciples were illiterate. And just think, we're having to go to 4 and 5 years of seminary to understand what simple illiterate fishermen were trying to grasp around the Lake of Galilee, you see. And so this is a problem here. So it's not a definite number, meaning you just keep on forgiving. So what? Forgiveness is so that we can reconcile, so that we can come to peace terms, you see. The picture brought out, the motion picture only brought out a little flashbacks of Jesus and his teachings.
And maybe a sentence, at least the words that were written under the script there were the important ones. For example, you know,
love your
enemies, and love one another as I have loved you. And you know, the forgiveness and the reference to the harlot that was being stoned, and the forgiveness there. So at least there is highlighted references to the central core of Jesus's teachings and his actions. Now, and you know, what I thought when I watched this, and after mulling it over, I said, well, maybe Christians can only stand a word or two or a flashback or two, rather than following loving your enemies and love one another as I have loved you, rather than making that a core and being uncomfortable when we don't love our enemies, that we just want to make a token reference to it, just touch it, and but not live it.
But Don, that is the essential gospel of Jesus Christ, and this is what is not emphasized.
Well, I know that.
That is the gospel. This is what we should be learning to implement. If I have trouble loving my enemies, what can I do to change that in myself? What can I do to change my prejudices? What can I do to change my pride? What can I do to change my bigotry? This is what the gospel of Jesus Christ gets to, but we don't hear this. All we hear is he died for us, and therefore you accept him, and now he is your Lord. But don't even know the meaning of that term, he is my Lord. He is my Lord means I obey his teachings. I love my enemies. I'm getting rid of my prejudice. I'm getting rid of my bigotry. I'm getting rid of my hatred. I'm getting rid of everything that divides me from loving another human being, regardless of where they are, what they're into.
Yeah, but when we have that type of teaching in the midst of a political and economic environment that says, well, if you want security, then we've got it through predator missiles and nuclear weapons.
All right, because we're not a Christian nation. We call ourselves a Christian nation, but we're not a Christian nation. As I told you, Jesus himself wasn't a Christian. He was a Galilean Jew, and he died as a Galilean Jew. But he taught the principles, these principles that we're talking about. Jesus understood from the prophets. Jesus was a prophet. He was like Isaiah, Jeremiah, only he saw deeper into it. I tell you, the prophets saw the only way Israel was going to have peace as a nation was through the truth and what God had revealed to them. But we didn't follow that. So what the prophets did is they had the formulas. But Jesus, I liken to Jesus. Jesus, as a tremendous Jew, knew how to take those formulas and mix them.
Yes.
And so we could drink it. So we could heal ourselves. And so all nations could heal themselves. And so we'd be at peace with one another. Instead, we fight one another.
And what Jesus was saying and doing is what God wants us to do.
Exactly. But that's his gospel, but we're not implementing that. So what I say about this film, The Passion of Christ, even though I didn't agree with a lot of its premises, what it promoted, it was overdone, overboard, and such a bloody crucifixion. Crucifixion is bloody, but the bandits should have also been beaten because they whip people before they go to the cross, so they'll be weak enough that when they're on the cross, they won't have to stay up there so long, they can die quickly. That's why they whip them, scourge them beforehand. And they didn't show you that. The bandits should have been on the same type of cross that Jesus was on, not just roped. They should be nailed, they should have been whipped, and they should have been hanging there like Jesus was, exactly. But we always made Jesus the central figure there, you see. And there was so much gore that they even had a crow come and poke out the eyes of one of the bandits because of the way he spoke to Jesus, which was ridiculous.
And where did that come from?
Made up by Mel Gibson. I don't know why they had to bring that in, but they did. There was so much of that in the film that it was disappointing and numbing. It numbed me. It failed to evoke anything out of me except, what in the world am I watching? Now, that's my opinion. There's a lot of people that have gone to see it, and they love it. They come out crying. People were sitting next to me that were crying. But it failed to evoke any empathy out of me whatsoever because it was so over the top. And what it said about Judas, what it said about the Sanhedrin, what it said about the Roman soldiers, what it said about them were all false and overdone.
Well, I'm hopeful that what we'll find here is that there will be additional follow-ups that will focus on the teachings and the actions of Jesus that caused him to be the revolutionary, the criminal, that he had to meet his fate of capital punishment for just being kind and compassionate and loving. And that sacrifice, if we can get somebody, perhaps I'll do it. If somebody gives me some cash, I'll put together a movie that shows the teachings that we can do, that Jesus really taught as a guide for us now to live. And if we can do that, then perhaps the passion, Mel Gibson's passion, can provide some benefit to us. If there's some additional development of expanding the story, I think it'd be a good one.
Yes, well, the only thing good I see in this is that it is creating a lot of dialogue.
Yes.
People are talking about it, and it is bringing things out to the forefront.
And comparing also what Hollywood usually puts out, it's the Passion is a blessing comparatively speaking. I would like in the past, Dr. Errico, you've always been able to share with us the blessings of the language of Aramaic. As I've told you before, that when I first heard it and when I continue to hear that language, I can imagine Jesus speaking, but I can't imagine I imagine the Semitic, dark-haired, swarthy person, and not the Norwegian that we usually see on our images of Jesus.
Right.
So
he should look Semitic and Near Eastern.
Right. Which is perhaps another question about the look that they gave to Jesus in that movie. But aside from that, the importance of Jesus is not really his image, but the way he taught,
what he was about,
and what he acted. If you can share with us the language that Jesus spoke, and give us the Lord's Prayer as Jesus spoke it to his disciples and to others.
I'd like to do that right now, but before I do it, I want to give one other sentence in Aramaic that the film did not translate correctly, where Jesus says on the cross, El ilmana shwaktin, and all our Bibles translated, my God, why have you forsaken me? And that's how they put it in the English subtitles, but it should be, my God, this was my destiny. No man takes my life, Jesus said, so no one's to blame. And he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. So what he said on the cross is, El ilmana shwaktin. That's Aramaic. So shall we pray?
Yes.
Awon b'shmeya nitkadesh smach Tethe Kamalkutha Nehwe Saviana Kanna Bishmeya Apar Howlan Lach Masumkanan Yaumana Washwok Alan How Bain A Kanadab Hanan Shwakin Lahaya Wain La Tatlanisiona Ella Pasimin Bisha Mithol Vilachi Malkutha Heilig Dishbochta La Alam Almin Amen.
Well, if you want to know more about Dr. Errico, you can go to his website, Noohra.com. He's also the Director of Biblical Studies at the Barbara King School of Ministry. You're also Associate Minister at Hillside Chapel and Truth Center, and provides a regular sermon Wednesday nights and on Sundays. Thank you so much, Dr. Errico, for being with us, for sharing with us. Every time that you're here, we all benefit from what you've learned and what you're willing to share for us.
Thank you, Don.
Thank you all for being with us. Every Church a Peace Church. Want more information about us, look at our website. And we're just so glad that you're with us. Watch for the rebroadcast of this program. We want you to seek peace, find peace, and be peace. Thank you.
How long will it take till we realize we made a big mistake? If we turned our back